Welcome back for another installment of Fellowship of the Rink. With me as always, for today at least, Joe Smith of The Athletic, Minnesota Wild, Gopher Hockey, PWHL Minnesota. We got it all. Joe, might be the last time I talk to you here for a minute. How are we feeling?
We keep on saying that every time we record something, right? I know my wife and I are getting anxious towards, like, as of this podcast, it's their due dates tomorrow. So, I'm hoping that this is the last one we record for a while. But exciting times, as you know. It's just crazy. You have all 9 months to look forward and think about it, but it doesn't become real until it becomes like the magic number is 3 or 4 or 1 in this case. So
it's crazy, man. It's a whirlwind, but I'm really excited, really happy for you guys. And don't worry, guys. I know Joe's going to be taking a little hiatus from the show. We have banked a ton of awesome interviews for you that we're going to be running in the coming weeks. We got Judd Brackett to tease and lead into the NHL draft. We got Hunter Haight, Riley Height. Hopefully you know the difference between the two. And today, a little bit later in this episode, you're going to be hearing new champion of the Walter Cup, Grace Zumwinkle. But Joe, let's open up here. I had my brother's wedding this weekend, so didn't really catch a lot of what happened in game one, but it seemed chaotic. When someone came and tapped me and is like, "Hey, Scott, you probably know what the score is right now, don't you?" I'm like, "No, I don't." I pulled it up. It was 2-0 at the time, Florida's lead, but Florida had 5 shots on goal and Edmonton had 18. What can you tell me about what transpired in this game?
Well, it's one of the few games in this postseason where the Panthers didn't really play particularly well. There was a game that Edmonton could have had, and they had 3 power plays. They had all these chances and went 0 for 3, which is rare for them. But I think Bobrovski kind of stole the show and was the star of game one. And if you're on the other side in Edmonton and you feel like you gave a great shot in game one and still lost, and Panthers won't play that poorly again going forward, then, that has to be a big blow to them. But I think it shows that the series is going to be close. Edmonton, even though they don't have quite the experience as the Panthers do as far as going to the final before and having probably a better defensive structured team, all it takes is that power play to get going, and this could be a whole different series. So, but Bobrovski, I think, stood out his head there, as they say in the cliche world of hockey. And I was curious for your thoughts. If he wins the cup, is he a Hall of Famer?
That's going to be an interesting one. That is really, I don't know.
It's 2 Vezinas, number 13 overall, and wins for a goalie. He'll be number top 10 if he gets a Stanley Cup.
So on paper, yes, that all reads correctly. You wonder, though, the thing that you typically are going to see with guys that are Hall of Famers is the track record and the consistency. And with him, he's always either been at the top or down low, and he's been kind of the up and down fluctuating guy. I personally have no problem if he gets in. I don't think I'm going to sit there and bang the tables if he doesn't, but if I had to lean either way, I'd say, yeah, he probably has a good case.
I think he has a good case. I think, we haven't put goalies in very much until recently last year. I think they had 3 with Lundqvist, Barrasso, and Vernon. So maybe that opens the door for goalies in the future to get in, but to have 2 Vezinas, to be the goalie in one of the biggest upsets in playoff history, beating the Lightning in a sweep from Columbus, and then if he wins the Stanley Cup, that could definitely put him in that conversation. You want it to be
done. They might not be done.
They might not be done either, and he has 2 more years on his contract, so he can become top 10 and win. So, it always feels to me like you have to look at a player and be like, is he one of the most dominant players at his position for a long period of time? That's what you don't want to be the Hall of Very Good. You want to be the Hall of Fame, right? So you don't want to have people who are stats accumulators just get in because of that, But so that'll be an interesting dynamic. But if he wins, it gives a lot better chance for it.
No, absolutely, it does. And it can't say enough about how he's turned his game around after. I think everyone knows how things started for him in his Florida tenure. So it's great to see for him. And on the flip side of this series, game one, how did we feel about Stuart Skinner's play? Did he hold his own and there were defensive lapses that kind of broke down and led to those goals? Or is this Stuart Skinner that we saw get benched in the middle of the Vancouver series?
Yeah, I don't know if we're necessarily worried about Stuart Skinner after game one. It wasn't he played awful and that's the reason why they lost. Like they still had trouble scoring goals against Bobrovski, right? You can't win if you don't score. And so I think there's other issues other than Skinner in this game. But I think the Edmonton Oilers say all the right things afterwards. Like if you play like this again, we'll have a chance to win. We play like this again, we'll be fine. But I don't think it's a Skinner problem. Ask later in the series, maybe like that. But when Bobrovski, the best goal in the series is the one that's not on your team, that often proves very challenging to win a Stanley Cup.
Yes, it does. The only time I can think of solidly that being the opposite is when J.S. Giguere won the Conn Smyth trophy on the losing team. And of course, Minnesota Wild fans know that all too well because he's basically the only reason that the Minnesota Wild didn't have their first Stanley Cup final berth in 2003.
Yeah, Giguere had a playoff of a lifetime, right? That'll be talked about for ages. And I agree that there should be. It's hard for me because I think it's like the Conn Smyth should be on the winning team in most cases. I would think that the playoff MVP should be a guy who won the championship. It has to be an extreme case. Let's say like Edmonton Oilers lose and McDavid has a great series. Like, would you vote for him for Conn Smyth?
I think it probably says more about the indecision. Like there was no one that truly stood out and was the MVP for the Devils. Whereas like there's a lot of guys you can point at for Florida who are having that kind of series.
Barkov, Bobrovski, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'd even give a touch of love to Forsling. Why not? But yeah, so I think that's a little bit different situation where there are guys on the winning team that you can point at where maybe the 03 Devils didn't quite as much have like, that's the guy. And that's what led to a little bit more dispersal and saying like, no, what this guy did is going to go down in history as one of the best runs for a guy that didn't win. But it is weird. I'm with you. It's tough to reach that point for sure. And that's why that's the only time I can recall seeing it.
Yeah.
Now
it's busy.
Yeah. Anything else we want to touch on from like things you expect to see different going into game 2 or things you saw in the game that you think are more anomalies?
Yeah. I mean, I just think, and I always thought, my pick going into was Oilers in 7. So I'm really curious for like the response for Edmonton in game 2, just to get a sense of like, if they play like this again, I mean, there's a very good chance that they win this game. Like, but if they fall behind 0-2, another Bob show, then it could feel a little more daunting for them, right? Even go back to Edmonton. So, it'll be interesting to see how this kind of all plays out. And the series is weird because they'll have 2 games in between games 3 and 4. Then they'll have 4 and 5 and 2 days between 5 and 6. So, but yeah, I still think it's gonna be a long series, in my opinion.
No, and you love what you saw from Edmonton, from what everyone's been saying. It is a little discouraging that Florida managed to win a game where it looked like one of the worst games that Florida's played in the postseason. So it's like, well, what's going to happen when they actually do play? But I don't think it's over by any means. It's going to be, I mean, game 2, to your point, is going to tell us everything about how far this might go. But you never know until you see them play on home ice either. So we'll wait and see. And hopefully this doesn't drag out to
tonight.
A 7.
We'll see tonight how it goes.
Yes, tonight as we record. Dang. Let's talk then about the more pressing matter and what kind of came up before the weekend. Lots happening apparently with the champions of the PWHL and Team Minnesota. Joe, I know you and Russo have been on top of it. I know you threw out an article last week. I don't know if there's been any developments since then, but just break down for everyone, like, what happened here with the ousting of Natalie Darwitz and what have we gathered so far?
Yeah, clearly shocking developments in what was a feel-good story, I think, for obviously Minnesota and the entire PWHL in their first year in existence to have a team like that win the championship, the first Walter Cup, have the celebration, all like the hometown kids being the stars of it. And then pretty much a little less than a week after they won the Walter Cup, Natalie Darwitz, the local hockey legend, Olympian, and 2-time champ with the Gophers, the GM of this team, put it together, was informed by the league that she would not be coming back the next season. And to give people perspective here, the league runs the teams. Like, it's not like you have the Wild where Leopold's over Guerin, who's over this. Like, the leagues are the one that make decisions at the higher levels of teams. So all these coaches and GMs were under 1-year contracts expiring on June 30th, and they basically informed her that she was not coming back, which was a shock to a lot of some players and a shock to obviously fans who saw that her lead a team to a championship, and all of a sudden she's gone. That led to some reporting by Mike Russo and I for The Athletic that posted on Friday regarding a rift between Ken Klee, who's the head coach of the team, and Darwitz, the GM, and that there were maybe some factions of players on each side. And that is part of what led to the league deciding that there needed to be a change there. So what we can tell you is just some background is that Ken Klee interviewed for the GM position that Natalie got and interviewed for the head coaching position. Going into last year, the thought was he could do both. He did not get those jobs. And then the league decided, with Natalie, that once their previous head coach, Charlie Berghoff, decided a week before the season to leave for personal reasons, that Ken Klee was already vetted. He was already an accomplished coach. He wanted the Team USA. It'd be easier to bring him in a week before the season. So on the surface level, before this all kind of happened, it seemed like a situation that'd be tough from a power struggle perspective of having the person who was kind of passed over for the GM and the coaching job come in and be working with or under Natalie. We didn't sense any. I mean, I'm not there every day, and neither is Mike, so it's hard to get a read if you're not. But they went through a season where they overcame the odds and won a championship after losing 7 straight games. Kendall Coyne came out after celebration, said this was such a fun team. There was no drama, which apparently that wasn't the case because, so essentially the league had kind of like consulting firms go visit all 6 of their teams to see if they're run professionally, see what they can do better for next year and what they can learn going forward. And that they decided after that consulting group went in for the Minnesota angle, they found that it was untenable for the situation to remain the same with Natalie there. They told her she had a couple options that she could, say she's leaving, put out a statement and be part of the work for the league in some other aspect. She could not, and she could be part of the draft, but not really be part of the draft. She could be at the draft, but not have any particular role. The draft was in Minnesota, obviously on Monday before this taping. So now you're going to have situations where there's probably lawyers on both sides, but it just, that's the brass tacks, that there was clearly enough of an issue between Natalie and Ken, or what they viewed from the consulting firm, that it was untenable. But now you have the local legend who led the team to a championship all of a sudden out after year one. And that's the biggest storyline you have leading into the PWHL draft and awards in Minnesota, which is it has to be disappointing from a league perspective. And they could have done this better, in my opinion, of managing this and handling it, because it just left everybody kind of flailing in the wind, right? And then this is the biggest storyline and topic point for this particular moment in the league. So we don't know the full story. Obviously, Ken Klee declined to comment, said he couldn't talk about it. Kendall Coyne hasn't responded to messages to us. We wanted to get both sides on that, if there was indeed kind of a larger rift or a power play here done on that side. But for right now, clearly it's a disappointing and frustrating end for Team Minnesota, considering this should be their cup tour. This should be their celebration. This should be Minnesota sports finally won a championship. And here we are talking about alleged infighting and a power struggle and players on each side. And now some uncertainty where there's not a GM anymore yet, and they're on a search for that for the PWHL Minnesota, with Ken Klee returning as head coach. So a lot to unpack and uncover. There'll probably be more reporting as this goes forward, but considering our podcast a couple weeks ago and how this was kind of a shining bright moment for the league to have this kind of happen, to have the league have a champion like this and a dramatic Game 5, and seemed all the momentum in that perspective was kind of lost with this kind of story that's taking over the headlines.
Yeah, it feels like the most Minnesota way to win and celebrate a Minnesota championship. And it's a bummer. And like you said, haven't gotten comment from a lot of people. We're not going to have all the details, but I know everyone appreciates how quickly you guys were able to get on top of this and at least get some context out there, because when you just see the headline, no context, that Natalie Darwitz has been removed after winning the championship, leaves a lot of room for people to just start making assumptions and making themselves look a little foolish.
And if she indeed there was a problem with her or something that went wrong, like, why would you still offer her a job at the league? You know, if there was an issue that was that, it makes it seem as though it was that power struggle where they couldn't have both of them there and they just picked the other person. You know, if you're league and you're offering her another job within the league, from what our sources are telling us, then it wouldn't be like some major, you know, scandalous misconduct that was done by this person. So I think it was handled not very well, I think, from a lot of different sides. And I think it just shows kind of the youth and the green of people who are running the league, or whether they people up top or in PR and everything. This could have been handled better, in my opinion. And then maybe there'll be some more things revealed at the draft and maybe more some transparency with it. But for right now, it's kind of the story that people are following along instead of who will be the top selection in the draft.
Yeah, it's a bummer, but we're here. New league. Hopefully they learn from this and handle similar situations a little bit better moving forward. We've got Grace Zumwinkle here coming up next, folks. And again, this interview was recorded well before any of the news came out with the Natalie Darwitz situation, so nothing touched on there. But great interview with Grace. Excited to kick it over for you guys now. This interview with Grace Zumwinkle is brought to you by our friends at Waggle Golf. Waggle Golf believes what you wear on the course should reflect your individuality, who you are, where you're from, your hobbies, interests, and passions. All the stuff that makes you, you. That's why every design is inspired by the desire to create a piece of apparel that strikes when you see it. It makes you say, wow, that was made for me. Because in a lot of ways, it was. Ready to get your waggle on? Go to getyourwaggleon.com, drop in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order. Joining the show today is one of us through and through, from her 4 team MVP seasons with Breck, taking down the 2017 Miss Hockey Award, to her 5 years with your Minnesota Golden Gophers, now drafted 13th overall in the first ever PWHL draft to, you guessed it, Team Minnesota, where she was just awarded with the first ever Walter Cup as champions of the league. Welcome to the pod, Grace Zumwinkle.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you jumping on. And we got a lead here. We always ask this question. Minnesota Wild logo. Very strange, obscure, everyone says. What did you think it was the first time you saw it?
I mean, all you notice is the trees for the Minnesota Wild logo. So I mean, like, oh, let's go with some Minnesota ties. But when you look at it, you're like, I still question. I'm like, what even is it? All I notice is the trees. But it is funny when you see like the Wild players try to draw it, and none of them are very close. But yeah, I still don't know what it is.
The drawings are incredible. Who do you think that anyone on your team could do any better? Is there an artist in the group?
I don't think anyone could do better. Mm-hmm. I mean, the effort would be there, but not sure about the execution.
Fair. And yeah, there's been some talk. We've had Taylor Heise and Natalie Darwitz on already, and there's been discussion around what the team name could be next year. Are you a fan of Purple Rain, Minnesota Miracle, or do you have a dark horse you want to throw in?
I feel like Taylor and I have always been going for the Purple Rain. I feel like you could do something cool with a crown, and just to clarify, it would be the REIGN, not the RAIN. But the Minnesota Miracle, I feel like that's just too much similar to the movie Miracle. So I know there's a football Miracle, but I don't know. I'm a fan of Purple Rain.
Plus, you're the reigning champs, so it fits for the first year, right? So
yeah, good point. Good point.
Yeah, now it has to.
As you can tell, our pod is called Fellowship of the Rink. Both of us are Lord of the Rings fans. I wasn't sure if you are, or if you have a special like nerddom or nerd itch that you have, whether it's a board game you like to play, or like a collectible thing, or like a movie series that you love. Like what kind of rabbit hole do you go down if you want to kind of get into your own head there?
Unpopular opinion, but I have not seen Lord of the Rings, so I apologize to both of you. I do really like the show Suits.
Okay.
It's
very strong.
Fun. But outside of that, I really enjoy playing golf or tennis. So I try to golf as much as I can.
Nice. Rate this take. The first like 4-ish seasons of Suits are incredible. They slowly lost me the next couple of seasons, and I didn't even finish it.
Yeah, that's a fair opinion. I did see though, Rachel Zane or from Suits, she's no longer on because she's obviously married to Prince Harry, but they're coming out with a new TV like twist off of Suits. So I don't know if that's gonna be any better, but that's what I've heard.
Okay. Interesting.
So I was asking some of the players this other day on Friday, but what was your most vivid memory of the celebration at the pub there in Lowell? Like, what's your most vivid memory or thing you'll tell people about, a year or so from now when you think about what that night was like for you guys?
Yeah, it was super special. I think a lot of us were like, oh, shoot, this would have been so much more fun if it was in Minneapolis or Minnesota or St. Paul or wherever you want to say, because everyone was there. But I think what made it so special was like it was just our team and then people's parents. But there were some shots that were taken. I don't know if that should be shared, but I think it was just fun to be together, especially like a lot of people, not a lot of people, but some people not from Minnesota. This group would never be together again. And so just to like spend those hours together was super fun.
The Touch Tunes party, I hear. So what was the most random song that was played on Touch Tunes from all your teammates who were the DJ from that?
Oh gosh, most random one. I don't know. I feel like there wasn't any that were like that random.
Okay.
I heard Ride My Bicycle was one.
Songs that are played over and over.
Yeah.
The karaoke.
The Ride My Bicycle one was kind of different. The Ride My Bicycle one seemed a little different, right?
That's an inside joke. That's an inside joke.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Fair. Stanley Cup tradition, right? Everyone gets excited to see what everyone's day with the cup is like. Is that something that's going to be happening with the Walter Cup? Like, I just genuinely have no idea.
I feel like that's the $1 million question right now, because someone was saying that the authentic trophy is going to go into the Hockey Hall of Fame. And then they're making another one. I don't know if it's the exact same, but then each person would get a day with it. But we haven't heard anything, so that would be news to me.
Yeah, I think the replica is for the Stanley Cup too. I think they don't give them the regular cup for the summertime, because it's been dented and busted so many times at cup parties. They give them a replica kind of thing as well for that. But what would if you had a day with the cup, like where would you bring it back home, or what places, what like restaurants or what rinks would you bring it to if you got it this summer?
Yeah, if I were to bring it to a rink, I'd probably bring it back to Breck. I still skate there a lot of time, and the school's been great to me. It's a smaller private school. But then I think I would have a party with like all my family and friends. Location TBD, but I think there's just so many people to thank and so many friends that I would want to share with that are hard to pick like where exactly.
What's the go-to meal you're going to eat out of it? Or beverage you'll drink out of it, whatever your choice is.
Unpopular opinion, but Billy's Sushi, and
unpopular opinion.
I would want to fill it with sushi rolls inside.
How is that an unpopular opinion?
Well, some people are like, oh, I don't know, like haven't heard of it, but it's my favorite restaurant.
I will come to that party.
Okay, you're invited. Yeah. You're invited. But I think I would put sushi rolls in it.
Nice. What's your like go-to sushi roll, or like not even if it's a specific roll, but like what goes into it?
I really like their crunchy roll, which is like beginners for sushi, or sushi for beginners. But that, or honestly, I'm not too picky. I am a picky eater, but with Billy's, I will eat anything.
Fair.
Did you guys have any go-to spots in town where you guys kind of bonded as a group, or a go-to place for lunch or takeout place? Like I know you have a dozen Minnesotans here, people who are from the area, so I could probably bring the rest of the people to certain places. What are your kind of go-to spots for the team this season if you're going somewhere?
Yeah, I would say a lot of people like Red Cow. I think it's
Mhm.
just easy. But Billy's is up there. For a quick lunch, Yum Bakery near St. Paul. I feel like people like that one. Otherwise, I don't know. I feel like it's just the classics, but those are the three that come to mind.
Is there a place like back home that maybe you haven't taken some of your teammates yet that would be the go-to spot?
Okay, so Taylor, this is unpopular opinion, but Taylor Heise and I are kind of foodies when it comes to restaurants. So like we really like Porzana or some of those nicer ones. But in terms of like quick casual, I don't know. I think Maynard's is kind of fun sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very fair.
It's more of an atmosphere than for the food.
I was gonna say I've had way too much fun at Maynard's.
And the music and all that stuff. What was this year like for you? What do you expect going in your first pro season? Like, what was your goals and hopes, and did it kind of exceed it from a personal standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, it was so crazy, like with the draft happening last September, and then people were like, is this actually going to be a thing? Like you had heard rumblings and like, how is this actually going to look? And so then once I found out that I was going to be seen in Minnesota, which was my goal all along, I think it was like, how can we put our best foot forward? And there's ultimately a championship at the end of the season, which is like what everyone is working for. But at the end of the day, it's individual in the sense of a team sport. And you're like, how can I be the best individually to help this team win? And so that was always the goal. Then there was some breaks with the national team along the way. But then I think after we came back, and I think we went 0 for 7 for a tough stretch there for a while. And I think it just made us realize if we want to make a push, how much better that we all need to be individually and collectively. And I think that's ultimately what helped us in the end.
Did you expect the showing that you got for the first ever home game?
Like with the 13,000 fans?
Yeah.
That, like, honestly, no. I feel like most people are like, oh, we'd be lucky to get 1,000 or 2,000 fans. And then to blow that out of the water was crazy. And I think that was just the stepping stone for the season, and be like, if we can hit that one time, to see like how often we can, or draw consistent fans. So, I mean, not every night was 13,000, but with 8 or 9 was better than a lot of us thought.
It's awesome.
And the 13,000 were ready to party with you on game 4 when you guys won the cup for the first time. Like, what was that moment like? Probably have to find your gloves somewhere in the bench, somewhere on the ice to get it. Like, what's that whole craziness like from a logistical perspective?
Yeah, it was crazy. I think a lot of us were like, oh, we've done it. And like we all along were like, please, like, let's not go back to Boston. And we had been traveling quite a bit. And then it was like, oh crap, like we have to go back. But it's like, if we're going back, we might as well win the game at the very least. So I think once we had lost that game and realized that we were having to go back, it was like, we're already going. So, and then we got up 1-0 and then 2-0. And then I think it was more so just like, let's finish it off.
What was like the energy just from the team after going out, starting the celebration, being told it's coming back? Like, I've just never been in a situation like that. Like, are you looking at it like, well, shit, like we're just totally deflated for this game? Or like, did you guys go out with the same gusto that you had previous in the game?
Yeah, I think it was, I mean, I think Boston ended up scoring like 1 or 2 minutes after that. And I'm not saying it was a deflating thing, but I think a lot of people are like, oh crap. But it was more so like, let's just try to get to the end of the period, regroup, and then see what happens into the third overtime. But at that point in overtime, it's like anything can happen. And they were obviously riding a high with the goal getting called off. So it was ours to lose at that point.
That's fair.
Like whose speech kind of hit you the most after that game 4? Was it like Kelly saying something, or was it Kendall? Like, it seems like it was a pretty like angry and quiet room, and then somebody spoke up after that game 4.
Yeah, I think Kendall's definitely like the calming presence during that time, and she's very stoic, so I give her a lot of credit, but everyone was just like, oh, pissed off or frustrated or whatever. Like, this has never happened to a lot of us before. And so I think she just really helped us stay even keel. And it was like, this is hockey at the end of the day, and every team faces adversity and whatever. And going 0-7, I think, has made our group after the break made us a lot closer. So I think just having that calm presence helped.
So beyond just the obvious of, well, if we got to go back to Boston, let's win it. Like, what was the message? Like, who stepped up? Was there anything big going in, or was it just another playoff game?
Yeah, so our coaches kind of had the mantra all along, just win the next game or win one game. And I think starting 0-2 against Toronto and then just focusing on like the next game, not thinking about the series as a whole or like, oh my gosh, we need to win 3 more games, but just on the next one, I think made it smaller in the grand scheme of things. Like you look at the Stanley Cup playoff and it's like, oh my gosh, there's all these games or whatever it is. And I think for us, just focusing on the next one helped us all along.
We had a few questions from Taylor to ask you. So how many Starbucks do you pound in a day?
I cut myself off at 1. I try not to go over, but I'm like 1 is my cutoff.
It seems like a little bit of a fib.
I only go for the grande. But if I'm like really feeling like I need to, I'll go to the venti.
Yeah, she made it sound like you do like multiple a day. So that's
oh
right.
No, come on.
Michael.
And she said, Michael Roos, yeah, Starbucks sponsorship there.
Yeah, seriously.
And what animal would you be if you could be one, and what would Taylor be?
So it's funny. Earlier this season, there's this TikTok trend, and it's like a golden retriever and black cat, and so we like tagged ourselves as that. And so she was definitely the black cat because she's a little bit more standoffish. She has a good personality, but just not as bubbly and outgoing at times. So I was given the golden retriever, and she was the black cat.
She probably didn't take that very well, given her affinity for dogs.
No, but she was the one that was actually like, you're more of a golden retriever than I am.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it was funny. There was one game we were like, the game day fits are always a big thing for girls. And just the outfit we had, I was like in this Sherpa tan colored vest and she was in all black. And she's like, it resembles our animals. But that was not intentional.
Sure. Of course not. Not at all coordinated the night before. I got you. Do you have any deep cuts or anything you want to throw in for like good stories, whether it's from the U or from, this first year on Team Minnesota with Taylor Heise?
Any dirt or anything?
Funny story, dirt, whatever you feel.
No, but it was funny. I think me and her have spent probably 3 months in a hotel room together, through the national team and stuff this past year. So I'm like, we really have gotten to know each other quite well, but everyone just thinks that we sit and talk the entire time because we're both very outgoing. But I'm like, when we're in the room, we just don't say anything and it's completely normal, but I don't have any shade to throw on her.
So how about this? Yeah. Well, how about this? What would surprise people about Taylor that don't know them, haven't spent 3 months in a hotel with this person? Like, what would be like either a hidden talent or like a little mannerism, or kind of like maybe people would be surprised to hear that she likes this or whatever?
Trying to think. The only thing I can say is the foods we've ate or would eat have rubbed off on each other. Like she loves Arnie Palmer's. And I'm like, I would never go and buy one, but now she's got me into buying them when I go to a gas station. Or I don't know, but she's more laid back than people probably think.
Are you in the whole baking thing with her? Like she does a big thing where she wants to get into it?
No. I'm like, you can bake for me.
Yeah, you're my people.
One time she was like, let's bake together. And I was like, I'll sit and watch and I'll help, but I'll leave it for you.
Nice.
Well, we do have some superlatives here if you want to get to know the championship team a little bit better. Who is the team DJ?
There's a few. I would say Emma Greco or Brooke Bryant. And Maggie Flaherty can sometimes step on in.
So what's the style, or what's the typical songs that are playing in
before a game or practice? Yeah. Or
right, both. They're different vibes, I'm sure. So
games, it's more EDM pop, I would say, and then practice depends on the mood. If it's been long, people would go with the classic slower country, Zach Bryan or Morgan Wallen, classic ones like that.
The best pregame fit, the best who comes best dressed to the game?
Who looks the best or who tries the most?
Ooh, let's do both.
Looks the best. Oh, that's a tough one. I feel like Heise tries a lot. They usually look pretty good though, so I'll give her credit for that. I don't know. That's a tough one.
All right, who tries the least?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I think a lot of people care. There's no one that's like, oh, you just wear the same thing. But Connor McDavid, it's been working for him with his 3 in a row. So
same suit every time, right?
Maybe we got to adopt that.
It's the Einstein move. Apparently, Einstein had 7 of the same gray suit, and that's all he ever wore because he wanted one less decision to make.
Oh. I heard Mark Zuckerberg does that as well. So they must be doing something right.
Who's the most superstitious on the team?
Maddie Rooney, hands down.
What does she do?
Before her first, she has a whole routine of things, but before her first shutout or whatever, she would juggle balls and accidentally dropped one. So she's like, oh no, this is a bad omen. And then she got the shutout. So now she has to intentionally drop a ball juggling. But everyone has their little quirks.
That's incredible.
Who's the team mom, I guess? The one make sure you guys are all on time or fed or anything like that. Who's
Lee Stuckline for sure. I feel like she's always Kendall's the actual mom of the team, but she has her hands full. So I would say Lee.
Who's the hockey addict? Who's the one that will be first to lace up and actually play hockey again after winning the championship?
I don't know if we have any. We have a lot of people that like to follow. Michaela Cava is a sneaky one that is always up to date with the Maple Leafs or anything NHL. But I would maybe have to put Heise and I in the group of the first ones back, which is a little surprising.
I'll give you a twofer here, and we can kind of take either or both. But who's either the team prankster or who is the team lightning rod that takes all of the punishment?
The prankster, I would say Maggie Flaherty. I mean, I don't know if you saw her video doing the splits on bar down after the championship. So I would say her. I tried to do a few pranks, but they didn't always end well. So
how does it not end well?
Well, the classic where you fill up a little cup with water and then you put it under their helmet, and then hopefully that. I tried doing that to the same person 3 days in a row, and I was like, oh, there's one day that she's just gonna miss it, and she figured it out every single day. So,
do you guys have a post game tradition where it's in the Rangers have the Broadway hat they put on, right, for the player of the game, or somebody has the Wild had a Viking helmet that they wore because they got it in Sweden. Do you guys have a post game thing for player of the game, or a post game hat or outfit or whatever that you guys?
Yeah, we had a pair of purple tinted star sunglasses, and they broke halfway through, so we had to buy another pair. But it was the traveling sunglasses, so then you would always have to pose for a picture after.
Nice.
And there are no rookie hazing or rookie has to get pucks this year at all, at the end of practice or anything that.
No, none of that. None of that. I mean, at this point, everyone was new this year, so there was none of that.
There you go. Curious, it's been awesome to watch some of the innovations from the league, rule changes that I wish the NHL would adopt, but never will. Do you have any sitting there lingering that you'd love to institute this rule?
That I would love to add, or that I did like that they added?
That you want to add personally. An example, Natalie Darwitz said, not having the freebie to ice the puck on a penalty kill.
Oh, heck no. No. I'm trying to think. I was a huge fan of the jailbreak, though. And there were some funny celebrations, especially after someone would score, then you would go pull them out of the box. That was always fun. I don't know. It would be interesting if overtime didn't just go 3-on-3 to a shootout, how those games would go, but I feel like they would just go on way too long.
Yeah, that's fair. But it would, I think everyone's kind of grown tired of the shootout.
Yeah. Because I'm that's not sometimes a true winner. It doesn't justify the game always.
True.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite interaction with a fan this year? I know there's so many young female hockey players that were in the stands and their moms brought them. They had signs up against the board. So I don't know if you have a favorite sign you saw or favorite interaction you had in town with maybe a young hockey player who was inspired by you guys.
Yeah, there was one girl in particular who would always come to every single game, and actually she had a birthday party last week and put a picture of me and her as her cake for the birthday, which was super cool. But I think also so many girls just made the classic Taylor Swift friendship bracelets, and it was people started collecting them on the team, which I think was just cool to see.
It's very cool. I asked both Natalie and Taylor this question, being that you've represented Team USA, you played for the Gophers for 5 years. Where is there more rivalry-based hate, Wisconsin or Canada?
Oh, I feel like it's so interesting nowadays because we all play with and against each other now in the league with US and Canada. But I feel like every time that's probably a little bit more fierce than Minnesota and Wisconsin. But I mean, they're still both up there. So it's hard to choose.
Did you have like an idol growing up?
What did Taylor say?
Taylor said Canada.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite?
Now in the WCHA, Ohio State's creeping up there. So
there you go.
The rivalries.
Did you have like a favorite player growing up or an idol on the women's or men's side that you kind of looked up to?
I feel like ever since, like on the women's side, at least Winnie Broad, she's like so instrumental in Minnesota and coached me for so many years. And she's just like someone that's always helped me. And I look up to her in a lot of ways. But I think from like the NHL side, I do love watching Connor McDavid still. I mean, he's just insane out there.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to win it?
I think he is. I mean, it's their time, I feel like, is due.
Like, I'm happy that.
What do you think?
I picked Edmonton in 7. I'm probably wrong, but I picked Edmonton in 7 just because they have the best player in the world on their team, Mike give an edge. But Florida's been really good defensively. They've been locked down, so they've been there last year. So
yeah, true.
That's a battle to watch, though, right? It's the two centers on both teams. Like, can the offense from Edmonton duel the Florida's defensive woes or scheme? And for me, I'd almost be way more inclined to be with Joe and say Edmonton in 6 or 7 if we didn't have a week delay. I felt like Edmonton was riding so much momentum that really was like crucial for them that is kind of going to suck. Like Skinner's going to be out of his groove. The whole team loses all that they've built. And I think Florida's going to have an easier time flipping the switch back on. So I'm leaning Florida in 6.
I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah.
The 1 week break, though, do you know why that is?
ESPN. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, like I think they wanted to set a schedule in advance and not knowing that the Dallas series wouldn't go to 6 on Tuesday. But I'm sure it related to starting the series on a weekend night, like
True.
Hockey night in Canada on a Saturday versus starting it on a Wednesday or a Thursday, I'm sure that's something part of it, but it's still a long time in between.
Yeah.
So did you, are you into basketball like Taylor? Did you enjoy the Wolves game the other night when you guys went together?
The Wolves game was fun. I'm not as much into it. She comes from a little bit of a basketball legacy. But she teaches me some things. She's helped me with my shot. And I used to have like the old school grandma technique. And she's like, you need to work on your follow through. So she's been teaching me some things. Or when you're at the game, it's like, why is that happening? But no, I'm not as much into it as her.
Jackie Moon, let him do it granny style. It's okay.
That was funny, actually. At the beginning of the season, speaking of Jackie Moon, we were going to wear matching jerseys into it because our coach was like, don't go rogue, Jackie Moon. So it's a little inside joke of ours.
I love that movie so much. Who's the best golfer on the team?
Besides myself, I'm going to take myself out of it because I played in high school. I would have to give it to Kelly Panic.
Okay, so it sounds like Kelly's number 2 then.
What?
The way you phrased that, Kelly's number 2, it sounds like.
I mean, we'll let the scores do the talking.
Oh, yes. Love that. Well, our final question here, unless Joe, did you have anything else we wanted to hit on?
No, I think I was going to ask you what your best non-hockey sport is, but I guess it is golf, right? So your best
either
sport
that or tennis.
Mm-hmm.
My sister and I actually faced off in the doubles state championship together, again in tennis. So I don't know what.
Wow.
Are you into the whole pickleball craze?
I love pickleball, actually. Mm-hmm. It's like one of those things, though, because it's like tennis. You actually have to know what you're doing. But pickleball, I feel like it's easier for people to pick it up, so you can play with friends more often. Yeah,
it's bigger ping pong. I've only played indoors. I don't know how people play outside. There is no way that I'd be able to control the ball with wind and stuff. Like,
But it's usually nice out, so.
Fair.
But you bring up a valid point.
And you have a place in Florida, right? So you probably get a lot of your golf game there, or like.
I don't have a place in Florida. We usually go down there as a family, but yeah, I do enjoy going down there.
Well, final question here. It's our Waggle golf question. Everyone go to getyourwaggleon.com. Drop promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order. Dead or alive, athlete, celebrity, whatever. Who would make up the final three in your dream golf foursome?
Ooh, my dream 3 foursome. I think I would have to go with a professional golfer of some sort. So I'd probably go Jordan Spieth.
Okay.
Or Scotty Scheffler, one of those two. Then from a hockey, I'd put Wayne Gretzky. And then in terms of like someone else, maybe Serena Williams.
Oh, okay. I like that. And now who's in your cart?
I would probably go Wayne Gretzky.
Nice.
Hard to turn down the great one, right? It's hard to turn that one down.
Yeah, hard to turn down.
Yeah. It's are you really competitive when you golf with friends or like Kelly or anybody like that? Or like do you guys like making little subtle bets or are you kind of just
when I'm golfing with someone that's like competitive too and they can hold their own on the course and then it gets competitive. Otherwise, if it's just with like a friend, I'm like, I gotta keep it light. Not just like, oh crap, that was a bad drive. So it depends who I'm going with. But when my family goes, it's usually ends very competitively.
Okay. I love how like subtle you're being about how good you are at golf, being like, yeah, like if there's someone that can keep up with me, I'm going to bet with But no, when I play with my teammates, no, I can't take their money. That's me.
I'm usually just going out for fun. I don't try to do too much.
Well, as long as it doesn't ruin your day if you don't get a 68, right? As long as it doesn't ruin your day. So you can have fun with it. But yeah, look, thanks for doing this. Looking forward to getting invited to your Cup Day. I'd love to get out in Lake Minnetonka and Excelsior there and kind of enjoy some Maynards action. But congratulations on a
you are more than welcome.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do a live pod from Maynards or something. That'd be great.
Yeah, you can do a double with me and Heise. We'll go on together.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be awesome. But congratulations on obviously a tremendous season. I know it could continue again next week at the draft and the awards on Tuesday. But we'll keep in touch maybe over the summer or early next season and do it again.
Yeah, sounds great.
Again, as promised, Grace Zumwinkle, great interview. We'll see if she holds up and maybe we find a way to sneak into the celebration party there, Joe. But really cool to see some of the young, bright stars of this new league. We've had Taylor Heise on. We just had Grace on. They're not just great players, but these are people that bring a lot of personality and can really enhance just what we're looking at from a full PWHL product.
Absolutely. And I think the whole idea was to get a lot of Minnesotans or local players in this team. And it played out really well, both on the ice and also off. You know, her story about, just getting young girls going up to them and talking to them about being their mentors and everything else like that. I think it was a really shining example of kids from all areas of Minnesota to be like, hey, these people are from where I'm from and they're playing professionally on the stage. So, and I know we didn't ask her because we didn't talk to her until after the investigation came about and the change with Natalie, but I think her interview shows kind of the dynamic of the team and how tight they were and kind of the resilience a lot of them had to win that championship. So you would hope that some of that isn't lost in what happened at the end of the season with everything else off the ice, because it really should be celebrated as a great season and championship for a lot of these young women who work really hard for it.
Agreed. Now to wrap up the show, we have, as always, Keyboard Warriors, brought to you by our great friends over at Barrel Theory Beer Co. This week, everyone get out there. This is their anniversary week. There's going to be different beer drops, different food options, different events every single day. Go check out their Facebook, check out their Instagram. They have all of the details listed out fully there. But please get out there, support our friends, whether you've been there before and want to see a little bit more excitement with the event, or if you've never been out there, there's never been a better time to go out and give them a try. Now, we've got some hot takes here today. Some keyboard warriors out there. First one I have here, Joe, and this is in reaction to Elliot Friedman speculating on NHL Network that the Blackhawks are going to sign Jake Gensel. Martin K. Sports on Twitter. Unless he is excited to play third line action, he can go somewhere else. No way he plays the second line or first. He is depth piece, no more than that. I don't have the words.
I figured this is yours since you're the Penguins guy, but yeah,
it's crazy.
Gensel will be certainly paid like not a third line or second line player, and it is interesting to hear, some rumblings about the Blackhawks making a splash in free agency. They are still in that rebuild, but I think they got a sense from last year of wanting to surround Bedard with more and give them a better chance. Like, this is not going to be a 5-year situation. I think they kind of understand that before he gets paid like crazy in a few years, that they want to see what they can do and just not get him beat up, right? Not have him to carry the load the whole time.
Yeah.
So Gensel would be interesting. If you think of all the other bigger pieces that are out there in free agency, they have the cap space to do it. They have the draft capital to do it. I think what Gensel was reportedly, according to Elliot Friedman, available for like a mid-round pick as far as his rights are concerned before get a chance to negotiate with him. So, yeah, I mean, whether or not he goes to Chicago or anywhere else, he will certainly be top line, top six in that respect. And I know Carolina hoped to keep him, and a new management change there, but there's a lot of playoff goals left in him.
There's a lot of mouths to feed in Carolina. It's not a huge shock, but yeah, I can't name a team in the NHL where he wouldn't go in and be a top six winger, let alone the Chicago Blackhawks, who have Connor Bedard, and that's it. And I think it's actually, don't get me wrong, I would not be happy about this at all, but it makes a ton of sense. If they're looking to bring in someone to play with Connor Bedard, this is a guy that thrived playing with Sidney Crosby, and it's almost going to be the flip now where he can come in and almost be a little bit of the mentor to Bedard while also giving him a finisher if he wants to dish the puck off. It's interesting. I personally hope it doesn't transpire, but out of my hands. The second one we have here is in regards to Marcus Johansson. I actually commented on Russo's latest podcast with LaPanta talking about Philip Gustafsson, and I just completely supported his stance, and got a question from the Wild West. What's your thoughts on his opinion of buying out Johansson? I kind of like the idea. I don't know.
Well, if you buy him out and are able to you can parlay that into a really good or better top six winger in free agency. If you can think that money can get you that, then it makes some sense in that respect. You're not going to trade him or be able to trade him necessarily. He has a full no trade. So your two options are that you can buy him out, save some money there, and put that towards name the free agent that you want to go after, whether Patrick Kane or whatever you think might be need to get more money to come here, or you just bank on some history of having Marcus Johansson in a contract year, and you're like, we're not going to give you a second line winger. We're bringing somebody else in, and if you don't, if you don't like it, then you can play better, and maybe he does play better. Maybe he does. He's not making a ton of money, but that money could go a long way with the cap space that they have to help get a winger in free agency. So those are your two main options. You're not going to trade him with a full no trade. You're also not going to guarantee him that second line winger spot. So I think if you have a plan going in and know, wink, wink, you can get this other guy that would be a better fit for you there and do that. The Wild have done these buyouts before. They've done much bigger buyouts before and dealt with it. But I just think you have to have a plan. It has to coincide with that versus just buying them out for the sake of saving $1 million-ish or whatever. But if the worst comes to worst, you have him come in, say, hey, start out in the third line wing. Maybe he comes in great shape and turns into the player that they reacquire for the second time, like 2 years ago. And then that's your best bet. And then if he all of a sudden earns that promotion back to the top six and becomes that guy. But, they're kind of in a interesting spot for that right now.
Well, it's interesting too. And I mean, again, you and Russo would know way better than me, but I almost viewed it a little bit differently where it's, hey, maybe they have a great dev camp. They have a great training camp then going into the season. And they see a lot of these young kids needing to play in the NHL. They are ready and you need to make a spot. That's where I saw the Johansson buyout being worth it. Because again, in his last year with $2 million on the books in a year that you're probably not looking at any form of real contention, looking next year at having the cap space, the flexibility, like it seems like an unnecessary thing unless you literally need to clear up the spot because you don't want to prolong someone's development.
And that's true too. Like if you really are serious about Riley Heidt getting every chance to make the team, where's he going to play if you don't trade a Rossi or somebody like that, right? Like there's just not enough. You don't want to have him, Ogren, and Kustadinov all on the fourth line, right? You know,
Yeah.
You're not going to have Riley Heidt in the team after the 9-game tryout and then have him a 13th forward, right? Like you want to give him legitimate chance, but they're pretty much full up on their roster. And if you especially if you add somebody in free agency, like a winger, for example, there's not very many spots you can put these guys in. So barring injury or whatever. So yeah, that would be tough because you wouldn't really know the person's camp until training camp after the buyout windows are put into play, you know. Like we thought that you can bury John Merrill's contract in the minors later on to save some money if you wanted to, but that doesn't save you a roster spot up top. So yeah, you'd have to make a decision earlier on that with a firm belief that somebody like a Riley Heidt, who is 19 years old and never played pro hockey, can all of a sudden step in and play, which is a great thought, but not always. It's a lot to put on a young player, as you've seen over the course of a few years.
Right. And it's one of those things where if that ends up developing, like buyout can happen later. But
yeah.
Last one here, and this will be brief because we already pretty much hit on this in our earlier segment, but Project Panthers podcast said on April 23rd, 2023, cannot have $10 million wasted on Bobrovski next season. Zito's number one goal must be moving that massive contract by any means necessary. It's clear we'd have the same kind of game with Lyon and net. He provides no advantage at that price tag, #time to hunt. It's funny to look back.
There's probably a lot of receipts with that on it, you know, and
I'm probably in that bucket somewhere.
And there are a lot of people, you know, educated media, everything, because the contract did look like a bad one after a few years when he was struggling.
Yeah.
And when you get that kind of deal, there's going to be some critics and for good reason. But I think a reason that they went out and got a goalie like that was for moments like this, when you're in a Stanley Cup final and get to Stanley Cup final, to put you over the edge. So yes, you can win a Stanley Cup with a goalie of not a huge stature. You saw that with Adin Hill in Vegas. You saw that in previous years. But if you watch these playoffs, you could say what a big difference Bobrovski has made. Not just the big save on Dumba in the Lightning series, but just overall, he's been terrific. And so having that guy all of a sudden gives you a better chance. So I think he's probably putting some other doubters to rest after the last couple of years, but that doesn't mean that those people were absolutely positively off base for saying, what did they get themselves into?
No, trust me. This is definitely not saying that at the time it was crazy. Although I guess being that it was late April, like he was kind of starting his like streak of being good. So maybe the whole idea is you can actually trade him now with 10 million. But yeah, definitely not a bashing thing. It's more to highlight how much of a turnaround there's been. And oh my God, people can't even imagine saying that about Bobrovski today.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Especially with him, a few wins from a Stanley Cup. So that'll be the ultimate payback right there.
Here we go. But that does it here, folks. And Joe, I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to pump either for you or Russo that's coming out here in the next week or two.
No, like Russo's covering the Cup final, and we have a lot of off-season stories to be coming out in the next few weeks leading into the draft. Obviously, some players they can get at 13. We'll have an interview with Judd Brackett that we'll be posting on the Athletic website, part of our podcast here. Get his thoughts on who they might get and this is draft strategy, and looking back at Charlie Stramel and and that such. And we'll have some free agency primers too on those targets that they might be looking at in free agency. So we'll have a lot of offseason coverage kick off a little more as we get closer towards the NHL draft. So those are things that you could be looking forward to, and always reread my piece on getting advice from NHLers being first-time dads and what their advice to me was. And hopefully I will be using every bit of it as we get into game time, pretty close to it for us.
Yeah, great read for people coming up this weekend for Father's Day too.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to think about being a dad on Father's Day. Like it never was. I don't know. For you, you're like a few months into it, but yeah, it's gonna be crazy to think I'm actually a father on Father's Day. It's wild.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know, selfishly, you get a little bit of a benefit with that too. Like I had to go into Mother's Day with no idea where the bar was set. So I had to be the one setting the bar. You kind of get to see how Father's Day gets handled first to know how you've got to handle Mother's Day next year.
Yeah, well, I did get her something for Mother's Day because she technically is a mother, right? And so it was like a little scrapbook thing and more of a sentimental versus like a large present. But yeah, it'll be good for her to set the bar there and see where I need to go.
No, again, excited for you guys. Obviously hope that we're not talking again here soon on Mike, just because that means everything went incredibly and you've got a kid now going into Father's Day weekend. Everyone, again, like Joe mentioned, we've got a lot of great interviews banked coming up the next couple of weeks. So continue to tune in. I'll be pulling in some different people here and there to fill around the interviews for these episodes until Joe's back. But anyone, again, new to the Fellowship of the Rink podcast, please subscribe, 5-star reviews. They help more than you know. If you want to see these interviews on video, we've got all of this with clips and full interviews going over to the YouTube channel. But best of luck, Joe. We're all pulling for you. And I guess kind of weirdly hoping that you have a girl, since you seem a little bit more comfortable in what name you might come up with there. But boy or girl, we just hope it's a happy, healthy baby, and look forward to chatting with you about it whenever it is you come back to Surface for Air.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. Happy early Father's Day to you and all the great dads out there. And excited to have some more fun stories to tell the next time I come on the pod here. But yeah, we're ready, excited, and nervous and all that stuff. But thanks everybody for supporting us along the way.
Hey, as always, we appreciate all of you guys tuning in for this week's Fellowship of the Rink. You stay classy, stay to hockey.